Welcome back to the channel. Today's anonymous confession is unlike anything you've heard. A married woman stepped into a secret chamber she was never supposed to enter. And what she experienced inside reshaped her entire life. Settle in, this one is deep, emotional, and unforgettable. I've lived long enough to know that trouble rarely knocks on your door looking like trouble. It arrives dressed in curiosity, wrapped in something soft and familiar, whispering your name like it already knows the shape of your desires. That's exactly how she came to me, quietly, unexpectedly, and with a story she had no business telling a man like me. She never told me her real name. I never asked. Some lines, once crossed, lose their meaning forever, and names are one of them. All I knew was that she was married, unsatisfied, and bold enough to send her words into the world for someone, anyone, to catch. That someone happened to be me. It began on an ordinary evening. I was seated by my window, the sky outside bruised with the deep purple of early night. My phone buzzed, lighting up my hand. A new message request. The kind that usually meant spam or some badly written attempt at attention. But this one had only 3 words. Are you awake? I should have ignored it. I didn't. Yes, I replied. Her next messages came like drips of warm rain, hesitant, delicate, but impossible to ignore. She told me she'd stumbled across a piece I'd written online, something she said made her feel seen for the first time in years. She said she trusted me, even though she didn't know my name and I didn't know hers. She said she had things she'd never told anyone. And that she needed someone who would not judge her. Someone who could keep her secrets and swallow them whole. Someone like me. I remember leaning back in my chair, her words stroking the edges of my mind. Women confide in men all the time, but this felt different. There was weight in her sentences, a kind of trembling desire for. That wasn't her responsibility to maintain. But the crescent room had shown her something else. A version of herself she thought had died somewhere along the way. So she went back. She didn't overthink her outfit this time. Didn't try to blend in or disappear. She wore a simple black dress, one that hugged her body just enough to remind her she was still alive under the layers of compromise and marriage and restraint. She said she stood before that same unmarked door, that faint red glow above it flickering like a secret signal only she was meant to see. And when she pushed inside, she felt a strange familiarity, as if her heartbeat synced to the rhythm of the place. The same velvet curtains. The same lantern glow. The same intoxicating scent that wrapped around her like warm hands. But something was different. People didn't glance at her this time. They looked at her as though they recognized her, not by face, but by energy. And then she saw him, the man with the half-mask. He noticed her instantly, as though he'd been waiting. He didn't rush toward her, he simply watched her approach, his posture relaxed, confident, patient. She said his presence alone felt like gravity. You came back, he said. It wasn't a question. More like a quiet acknowledgement of a choice she'd already made long before she opened the door. I wasn't finished, she replied. He nodded, offering his hand, not as an invitation this time, but as a connection. She placed hers in his without hesitation, and he led her deeper into the chamber. She said the room felt warmer that night. More alive. She could hear whispers layered under the music, soft laughter, the rustle of fabric as bodies shifted closer together. The energy pulsed like a living heartbeat, slow and steady, drawing her in. He guided her to a lounge draped in velvet, a secluded corner framed by curtains. Honesty. She wasn't confessing because she was guilty. She was confessing because she was tired of being quiet. She introduced herself only as a woman who learned too late that marriage isn't the prison, silence is. Her husband, she said, had never caught her doing anything. Not emotionally. Not physically. Not even suspiciously. She lived like a ghost in her own home, moving around a man who saw everything but her. The perfect alibi for a woman who knew how to exist behind curtains. What she wanted now, she said, was to tell the truth, not to him, but to someone who wouldn't run from the shadows she'd collected. Then she asked me a question that changed everything. Do you want to know where it started? I should have said no. I didn't. She typed slowly, each message a breath against my neck. She told me her story didn't begin with love or betrayal. It began with a place, one she swore no one would ever believe if she didn't say it herself. A place where she had an experience so unimaginable she still woke up at night replaying the details. And she said she wanted me, to be the first person to hear it from her lips. I typed only 2 words in response. Tell me. She told me the place didn't look like much from the outside. Just a door, she said. Just a building. Just a night like any other. But her voice, if text could have a voice, shook as she described it. I could almost feel her pulse through the words. It started on one of those evenings when the world feels too small and too loud at the same time. Her husband was away on a business trip. Or at least, that's what he called it. She didn't bother asking anymore, her curiosity had dried up years ago. She'd learned the hard way that some men work late, and some men work elsewhere. He belonged to the second category. My anonymous storyteller said she almost turned around, almost. But almost only matters to people who choose safety. That night, she didn't. She let the curtain fall behind her. Inside, she found people, not many, just enough to fill the air with warm, charged energy. They weren't loud. They weren't boastful. They carried themselves like they belonged to a different rhythm of life. A slower one. A deeper one. Nothing about them felt reckless or wild. Everything felt intentional. Some sat on low, cushioned lounges draped in velvet. Some stood near pillars carved with swirling patterns, speaking in murmurs that blended with the gentle hum of unseen music. A few wore masks, not literal disguises, but delicate half-masks shaped like leaves, wings, waves. She realized quickly, anonymity wasn't shame here. It was protection. A man approached her first, not too close, not too boldly. His steps were slow, deliberate, as if he understood the unspoken rules better than anyone. She didn't describe him in detail. Not his height, not his features, not his age. She said she refused to define him by anything that could identify him, because what he gave her had nothing to do with who he was and everything to do with who she had forgotten she could be. He bowed his head slightly, acknowledging her presence without intruding on her hesitation. Then he asked, quietly, "Do you want to explore?" She didn't answer at first. She scanned the room again, trying to make sense of it. The energy there wasn't chaotic, it was intimate. Every look lingered, but none demanded. Every movement invited, but none insisted. For the first time, she said she felt like a woman standing on the edge of her own unspoken desires, not someone's wife, not someone's shadow, not a person shaped by expectations. Just herself. When she finally nodded, the man extended his hand, not touching, just offering. She placed her palm an inch above his, not making contact. He led her that way, guiding her through the chamber, letting her observe rather than participate. She watched couples move together with slow, deliberate closeness. She watched strangers sit shoulder to shoulder, their breaths sinking as if they had known each other for years. She watched a woman lean into another's whisper and smile with something like rediscovery. Everything was sensual. Nothing was obscene. It was a place where boundaries were spoken, not crossed. Where consent wasn't a question, it was the foundation. She told me she didn't do anything that night except watch. Feel. Absorb. But even that changed her, because for the first time in years, she felt desire without guilt. The kind that wakes up parts of you long buried beneath routine and responsibility. She told me she left the chamber knowing she wasn't done. Not with the place. Not with herself. Not with the version of her that came alive in that glowing, whispered room. Before she walked out, the man in the half-mask leaned in and murmured, "Come back when you're ready to stop observing." She didn't sleep that night. She said her body was calm, but her mind was on fire. She told me the second visit felt nothing like the first. The first time, she had been a stranger wandering into a world she didn't understand. But the second time, she walked toward it with intention. No hesitation? I asked her. Her reply was immediate. Not even a little. She said the days after her first visit were the longest she'd felt in years. Every ordinary task, every familiar routine, every empty moment beside her husband, reminded her of the woman she used to be, quiet, careful, contained. A woman who silenced herself to keep a fragile peace. He didn't rush. Not a single movement was hurried. He sat beside her, close enough for their shoulders to brush, close enough for his presence to settle into her system like warmth spreading from the inside out. Tell me what you want, he said quietly. Her throat tightened. Not from fear, but from the unfamiliarity of the question. Want. A word she had never been invited to define for herself. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the music seep into her bones. She felt his breath along her jawline, warm and steady, waiting, not demanding. I want, she whispered, to stop living like everything about me is a secret, even from myself. He exhaled, a soft sound that seemed almost like approval. Then tonight, he said, give yourself permission. He didn't touch her at first, not fully. He brushed her knuckles, traced her wrist with the back of his fingers, moved with the slow, deliberate intention of a man who understood the weight of anticipation. Every gesture felt like a conversation. Every breath felt like an invitation. And she let herself respond. Not with reckless abandon. Not with guilt. With presence. She said it was the first time in her adult life she let go of the voice in her head that always demanded restraint. The voice that belonged to her upbringing, her marriage, her fears. For once, she didn't silence it, it just finally stopped speaking. The room around them faded into soft warmth and blurred golden edges. People moved, murmured, breathed, but none of it registered beyond the orbit she and the masked man shared. Nothing explicit happened. Not in the way people would assume when they hear whispers about hidden chambers and velvet lounges. She sat, and he settled beside her, not touching, but close enough for her to feel the heat radiating from him. Silence settled between them, not awkward but charged. What do you want to feel tonight? He asked, his voice low. She didn't answer right away. She closed her eyes, listening to the hum of the room, the soft exhale of breath near her ear, the faint brush of air as he turned slightly in her direction. I want to stop thinking, she finally whispered. I want to stop apologizing for wanting anything at all. He didn't move closer. He didn't push. He simply said. Then stop. Tonight, you owe the world nothing. She told me something inside her cracked open at those words. Not in a painful way, more like a shell breaking to let light in. For the first time in years, she let her shoulders drop. Let her breath slow. Let herself feel without guilt weighing her down. He stayed beside her, speaking quietly, guiding her mind more than her body. Helping her unlearn the shame she'd been taught, helping her reclaim the parts of herself she had abandoned. She said they talked for hours, softly, intimately, about desires she'd never voiced, about boundaries, about hidden pieces of herself she'd long buried. Nothing rushed. Nothing reckless. Nothing that demanded more than she was ready to give. When the night neared its end, he leaned closer, close enough for her to feel his breath on her neck. Next time, he murmured, don't come to watch. Come to experience. She left the chamber trembling. Not with fear, but with the awareness that something inside her had awakened. And she knew then that she would return. Not for him, but for the version of herself she met in that room. First time? My fingers tightened around my phone when she told me that part. I could imagine the tone, the confidence, the quiet knowing in the woman's eyes. She nodded, and the woman led her deeper into the dim, velvet-lined hallways. The place, she said, was called the Crescent Room, not displayed anywhere, only whispered by those who knew. And people only arrived there one of two ways. By invitation. Or by accident. The kind of accident that rewrites everything. She swore she had no idea what she was walking into. She wasn't looking for danger. She wasn't looking for pleasure. She wasn't looking for anything except to feel alive. But when the woman guided her into the main chamber and the curtains parted, she realized she had entered a world where desire wasn't a secret, it was the language spoken openly. She paused in her message then, leaving me staring at the screen, my imagination filling in shadows she hadn't yet revealed. Then she wrote. What happened in that room, that's what changed me forever. She told me the chamber wasn't bright, yet nothing inside it hid in darkness. Soft amber lights glowed from behind sheer curtains, casting warm halos across the floor. The room felt alive, breathing in slow and steady waves, as if the walls themselves carried secrets too heavy for daylight. She paused in her message before describing the moment she stepped fully inside, as if she needed to steady herself, even in memory. I could feel it through the screen, the way her pulse must have quickened, the way her breath must have caught in her throat. The woman in black velvet guided her to the center, then whispered. If you choose to stay, you leave your fear at the door. She didn't touch her. She didn't need to. The words alone were enough. She told me the third night felt like stepping across an invisible line she had drawn for herself long ago. A line made of fear, duty, and a lifetime of swallowing her own hunger. Crossing it didn't feel dangerous, it felt like arriving. She said she walked into the corridor leading to the crescent room with a kind of quiet boldness. Not reckless, not arrogant, just certain. A woman who had finally stopped asking permission from a world that never asked what she wanted. When the velvet curtains parted, the familiar warmth washed over her like a welcome she didn't need to earn. The lanterns flickered softer that night, and the music curled around the air like smoke. Even the air seemed thicker, heavier with unspoken possibility. And he was there. The masked man stood near the curved railing, speaking to another guest, but the moment he sensed her arrival, he paused. Not dramatically, just a small, subtle shift of his body, like a compass finding north. She said his attention settled on her as though nothing else mattered in that moment. You came, he murmured when she reached him. This time, she didn't answer with words. She met his gaze, what she could see of it, and gave a slow nod that carried everything she couldn't speak aloud. He took her hand, and unlike the previous nights, she didn't hesitate. She let his fingers intertwine with hers. And the room responded to them. Or maybe she only imagined it. But she said the soft hum of voices faded, the lights dimmed just slightly, and the world narrowed to his touch. He guided her to a secluded area draped with deep red fabric, a lounge tucked behind carved wooden screens that let the chamber glow seep through. Everything there felt intimate without being isolating, private without being hidden. She wasn't looking for trouble, she insisted. She was looking for air. For a night where she wasn't someone's wife, someone's responsibility, someone's silence. She dressed simply, jeans, a soft blouse, nothing meant to attract attention. She drove without direction, letting the city guide her. Streetlights passed like blinking signals, neon signs smeared across her windshield, and the hum of nightlife tugged at her from every corner. That was when she saw it. A narrow building tucked between a shuttered bakery and an overpriced boutique. One red light above the entrance, not flashing, not bright, just glowing like an ember waiting for breath. There was no name on the door. No sign. Just a single symbol etched into the metal, a crescent that looked hand-carved. She doesn't know what made her stop. She said it felt like recognition, as strange as that sounded, like some hidden part of her already knew what waited inside. When she stepped out of her car, she felt a shift in the air. Heat. Music. A pulse, low and slow, vibrating through the pavement. She told me she walked toward the door with the kind of courage that belongs only to people who have nothing left to lose. And when she pushed it open, everything changed. The inside wasn't a club, at least, not in the sense she expected. There was no bar lined with bottles, no crowd shouting over bass. It was darker than that. Softer. Deeper. Tall lanterns cast golden circles on the floor. Silk curtains hung from the ceiling like suspended rivers. The scent of something warm, amber, sandalwood, something sweet and sinful, wrapped around her. She said she felt watched, but not in a threatening way. More like, evaluated. A woman approached her first, elegant, sharp, dressed in black velvet. She didn't smile. She simply looked at her, then asked. What happened was deeper. More dangerous, in a quiet way. She allowed herself to be seen. Truly seen. Without shame. He held her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek, and in that moment she felt something she hadn't expected. Safety. Not protection. Safety within herself. When the night finally drew to a close, he didn't cling to her. Didn't claim her. Didn't make promises he had no intention of keeping. He simply said, "Now you know what you're capable of feeling. Don't forget this part of yourself." She left the Crescent Room that night changed, not because of him, but because of what she had awakened inside herself. The walk back to the hotel felt dreamlike, her body light, her mind quiet for the first time in years. When she got home to her husband days later, she wasn't the same woman. Not because she betrayed him. She never did. She remained anonymous because she knew most people would never understand. She wasn't hiding guilt. She was protecting the truth of her transformation. She told me that night didn't break her marriage. It didn't fix it either. It did something far more important. It brought her back to life. And that, she said, was the unimaginable experience she never expected. But desperately needed. This content is an original fictional work created solely for entertainment and storytelling. Any resemblance to real people, locations, or events is coincidental. The story contains mature themes suitable for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Thank you for watching this powerful anonymous confession. If this story moved you, shocked you, or made you think differently, don't forget to heavy checkmark like the video. Heavy checkmark comment your thoughts. Heavy checkmark and subscribe for more weekly confessions and mature narratives. Your support helps us bring more stories to life. See you in the next episode.